No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken Live, episode number 36. And the silence majority is quite rightly outraged today, as a child rapist has been spared jail by a judge specifically because of the prison overcrowding scandal. And why is there prison overcrowding? Well, because the police and slippery Starmer have been so desperate to lock up previously law-abiding citizens who are now so-called rioters and even social media posters. Merseyside Cops are making music videos to dox their targets. Isn't it a shame that we don't see that same sort of social media fervour about smashing grooming gangs? Well, in my digest next, I'll take on the two-tier policing, which is putting the safety of young Brits at risk on the day of the devastating funeral of Southport Massacre victim Elsie Dot. Also coming up on the show, Nigel Farage is serious about becoming Prime Minister in 2029 or before. Katie Hopkins has been cancelled again after pressure from the Church of England in the country's latest free speech outrage. My superstar panel, the country Squires James Bembridge and Reform UK candidate Steve Chilcott, will weigh in on all of that shortly. And Steve is going to reveal all about his viral confrontation with Narinder Kaur.
Uncontrolled Migration. He doesn't let me talk. You know Asians who
and
don't
that's saying something, isn't it?
Immigrants,
Hello there.
Immigrants who don't like immigration.
No, they don't like uncontrolled immigration. They don't like people
so
following the right process that their fathers and grandfathers
my dad followed the right process.
Exactly.
We might hear from Narinder too. Then, in the uncancelled after show, a special interview with Samantha Markle, Meghan's sister, on a disastrous week for the Sussexes where their Colombian tour flopped and they were told that they are set to lose their $100 million 5-year Netflix deal. You can register to watch right now on our own website at www.outspoken.live. Most importantly, it's a safe space, free of censorship. Your support, at just £5 a month if you do sign up to pay, will not only give you that 30 minutes of extra content every single weekday after the main show, it also allows us to continue making this independent daily news show, and in the current circumstances, given what's going on with the MSM and free speech, it's more important than ever. Let's go. Isn't it strange how the police and the CPS and slippery Starmer never seem to want to talk about smashing grooming gangs or tackling urban crime waves or stopping the scourge of Islamist terrorism? But when it comes to hunting down white working class English folk who may have sent an inappropriate Facebook or X post in the heat of the moment in those horrific hours after the Southport Massacre, not only will they mobilise the entire justice system, they'll promote the hell out of it. Like this ludicrously over-the-top video about the arrest of one of the so-called rioters. As Alex Armstrong pointed out, imagine if the police put half this effort into illegals coming via dinghy. But we'll now lock that man up, alongside Julie Sweeney, the 53-year-old from Kidsgrove who lived a quiet, sheltered life in Cheshire and is the primary caregiver who made an inappropriate comment on Facebook that she instantly regretted and tried to delete. Or next to this teenager who waved an England flag and shouted at police outside an Islamic centre, who has been jailed for more than 2 years. But when it comes to child rapists, you'd think they'd also feel the full force of the law, given Keir has insisted two-tier policing is just some sort of figment of our imagination. Well, I really wish that were the case, but chance would be a fine thing. Ross Newman was given a suspended sentence last December for the historic rape of a girl under the age of 14 in 2005 when he went on holiday in to Egypt in May. Breaking the terms of his sentence, he should have been locked up immediately. But at the Newport Crown Court, Judge Tracy Lloyd Clark, the Recorder of Cardiff, admitted, and I quote, "The only reason you have escaped immediate custody today is because of the prison overcrowding crisis." So we now have categorical proof that Operation Early Dawn is seeing child rapists out on the streets so social media offenders can be sent down. How the hell can the MSM be so silent on what is such an obvious outrage? And I'll tell you why. Because they're in on this. As Chris Rose pointed out, child rapist equals spared jail. Twitter or X posts equals 3 years in jail. Two-tier Britain, we're a laughingstock. But you won't hear about the public's obvious anger on the British bashing corporation Woke ITV or Sly News. Responding to the CPS boasts, which I think is so grim by the way, our superstar panellist Lani Dowding made this point. Imagine this sick and twisted institution bragging about swift justice less than an hour ago when a child rapist was let off jail due to overcrowding. How many people have been jailed for social media posts? She copied in the CPS, Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper, and said, "Our kids are not safe with you." I think she's right, by the way, given it was the CPS and Keir Starmer who decided not to charge Jimmy Savile. Remember that? Our regular here on Outspoken, Father Calvin Robinson, he went further, writing, "It is funny how they can arrest white working class Britons on entry into the country, but they still cannot deter illegal immigrants from flooding our shores on a daily basis. Off the plane, into custody. How about off the boat, into custody? And then return to where they came." He added that this is now a case of the government versus the people. Calvin said they want us afraid, they want us silenced, we have to say no, we have to stand up. The truth remains the truth, no matter how much Two-Tier Keir and his stormtroopers, I like that, threaten us. He adds the mood is shifting, this will end in civil unrest, if not war. The TV psychologist, Emma Kenny, another very sensible woman, made the point anyone who believes that pushing a shopping trolley at police is more deserving of prison time than someone guilty of child rape should immediately be disallowed contact with any children permanently. But of course, Two-Tier Keir is now engaging in the biggest attempt of diversion in modern history. He is trying to gaslight the population into believing there are not consequences to importing extreme Islam into the country. But as Spiked Online's Tom Slater pointed out in a very good column, from 2005 to today, 95 people have been murdered in Britain in Islamist attacks, while the far right has slain 3. Islamism also accounts for 3/4 of MI5's caseload. You wouldn't get that impression from reading the newspapers. No, you wouldn't. Or listening to our leaders. Because if you took seriously what Jess Phillips or Yvette Cooper was saying, you'd think this newly invented crime of extreme misogyny was actually the biggest threat facing this country. Thank goodness Jim Davidson isn't having any of that.
So let's just talk about the government. Right, they've announced plans, right, to treat extreme, this is their word, extreme misogyny as terrorism. Hang on a minute. What does that mean, misogyny? It means a hatred of women, doesn't it? Yeah. Imagine that. Right, this is the same party that can't even say what a woman is. The same party that really wanted to bring in self-ID, which have totally destroyed women's safety. The same party that brushed the grooming and rape gangs aside, thousands of white working class girls, they swept them under the carpet because it didn't want to appear racist. The same party that is doing f*** all about tens of thousands of unchecked and unvetted men coming into the country. The same party that stood on the side of trans activists who send death threats to women, who are trying to stick up for their own rights. What is the f***ing hell's going on? It's gone mental. I mean, the world has gone mental, and you don't want this government there to sort it out. No, they quite like it. Let's quite like it. Unbelievable. So how can this policy about misogyny be policed? How would it end? It would do nothing to actually protect women from real threats, but, you know, they end up jailing some builder, you know, with his arse showing, looking over his shoulder and wolf whistling at some bird walking past and telling her she's got nice tits. It's fucking unbelievable. It is
It is unbelievable, Jim. And thank goodness we do have independent-minded folk, as I said, like Jim, who are actually prepared to risk jail for shouting loudly about the fact and actually sometimes trying to make us laugh about the fact, even though there's nothing funny about this, that it is wrong, that it is subhuman to let a child rapist walk free while sending down pensioners for writing hurty words on social media. But to discuss this further, let me introduce today's superstar panel. And on this Friday, I am delighted to be joined by James Bembridge. He is the deputy editor of Country Squire magazine and a Conservative commentator, and Steve Chilcott, the businessman and Reform UK candidate for Hounslow, Ealing and Brent. Great to have you both here making your Outspoken debuts. So Steve, could you believe that we have a judge having to admit in court that the reason a child rapist who has broken their sentencing conditions will not be sent to jail is because we are locking up people like Julie Sweeney, who sent an inappropriate post on Facebook?
You know, what I think is the most unforgivable in all this is the increasing frequency of this inconsistency. You know, for years, frankly, on the streets of London, under the control of Sadiq Khan, our lovely mayor, we've seen gross inconsistencies of management of protest demonstrations. I've personally witnessed many of those. Now this inconsistency is moving into the judiciary. And, you know, frankly, if we cannot rely on our judiciary to apply the law without fear or favour, you know, frankly, that's the slippery slope to totalitarianism. And, you know, we're seeing these things. We're seeing this inconsistency on a day-to-day basis. Every day seems to bring new examples of gross and unfair inconsistency.
James, can you believe that a child rapist is being let out on the streets?
Well, we know the left like to start with them young, don't we? And I'm sorry to say, but they do. And also, it's like Starmer's government takes his citizens' patience to be unlimited, their forgiveness to be boundless. What I would say about his government is that it's kind of tyranny masquerading as decency. Do you not think?
I do. I think that's a really good way to describe it, actually, because there's nothing decent about what's being done. But how disappointed are you, Steve, that the entire political establishment and mainstream media seem to have gone along with this ruse, that actually the biggest threat to modern day society is the so-called rioters or the so-called keyboard warriors? What is that about? Do you think it's because that is far easier than politicians and journalists and elites actually having to talk about the real issues, like the cost of mass immigration, like the cost of importing an extreme religion into our country?
I mean, I really try hard not to be a conspiracy theorist, but frankly, this isn't happening by accident, isn't it? Is it? This is not happening by chance. You know, a thought that has crossed my mind is this is Project Fear Mark II. Mm-hmm. Project Fear Mark I was the lockdown, was the pandemic, where the entire system, state, authority, mainstream media swung into action, telling us what we now have learned to be damn lies. It now seems that they are collectively working together to scare us into fear that there are far-right demonstrations about to break out on every high street. By the way, practically none did break out. The reaction of that with very murky organizations like Stand Up to Racism, protesting to, allegedly act as the anti-fascists. It's not happening. Something is going on here. And as I say, it's not accidental.
Exactly. I don't believe there is an organised far right in the UK. What there is an organised hard left, and we saw organisations like Antifa completely infiltrate what was going on. And I do think that made the situation far worse. But what we have, James, is a silenced majority who are angry, who are fed up with being ignored. And the problem is they're being demonized, which is only going to make the situation worse, is it not?
What else but angry can they be, Dan, when they've seen, of course, the tragic case of 3 girls who were stabbed by that second generation immigrant? By the way, what I'd say about that is he took everything away from their families. And probably, I might suggest that our country gave him everything. Opportunities that he would not have gotten in his parents' home of Rwanda. And of course the people have a right to be angry and a right to express it in a way. Of course, most of them aren't like you and I. They don't know how to express it without dodging Ofcom or the police or something like that. But what else can you expect if we have endless immigration? I forget how many child stabbings there have been in the past 2 weeks. So yes, what else but angry can people be?
I know. And the difficulty is, Steve, is that we can't even really talk much about the man who is facing the charges for the murder of those 3 beautiful young girls in Southport because of the way that our judicial system works. It would be contempt of court. We have to be very, very careful in terms of what we can say. We don't even know how this guy came to be in this position, whether he was radicalized, who he was talking to. We don't know any of that. And the way the entire system is designed, Steve, is to shut down those conversations. So you'll see in the days after what happened in Southport, the drumbeat is, we've got to grieve now. This isn't the time to have a conversation about the political issues. This isn't a time to have a conversation about the perpetrator. Then he's charged, so you get into the territory of contempt of court. The media can shut up. Anytime a politician is asked about it, they can hide behind the court process. Well, the court process could drag on for 2 years. So we're just expected to sit back, not talk about this guy, not find out what led him to do this. And I think it's so wrong.
Absolutely. We have very little clarity on him and certainly no clarity on what his motives were. Now, I struggle to believe that through all the interviewing process of that individual, that the authorities have no idea what his motives are. We've still not seen any photograph of him other than a very, very old photo when he looked very sweet and innocent and about 12 years old. Even the court artist drawings of him, his face was covered. Clearly, the state wants to manage society. It wants to minimize the chances of civil unrest. But they don't seem to realize that this smoke and mirrors, this lack of information in itself is leading to unrest and concern amongst people.
Well, indeed, it's only making the situation worse. I know we're going to speak about Nigel Farage shortly, but it's interesting, isn't it? He was completely slammed by the mainstream, by the political elites, for asking the questions that all of us were thinking. In fact, it's led to a huge surge in popularity, both for him and Reform UK over the past few weeks. But of course, the crime wave hitting the country, with huge amounts of crime being committed by people who are here illegally, continues. I want to share with you a tweet or an ex-post, I should say, by the brilliant Connor Tomlinson, a regular on this show and a host on Lotus Eaters, who was doing some investigation and wrote, another quote-unquote man has been convicted of violent crimes. Wounderson Gabre was jailed for 13 years and 5 years extended license for rape, attempted rape, actual bodily harm, and perverting the course of justice. While the BBC says he hails from Salash Road in Rodburn, local news has reported that Gabre is a Somalian asylum seeker. On the 29th and 30th of May 2022, he attempted to rape 2 women before succeeding with a third, threatening a prostitute with a knife. Investigating Officer DC Emma Rosita said it has been a complex and lengthy investigation since the first incident, as he has continually lied to officers, giving false statements about incidents and obfuscating facts in attempts to cover his tracks. Why is this serial predator not being deported? Why indeed, James?
Because there's the people in power, civil service, have no wish to see him deported or any one of his kind deported. In fact, they wish to see more of his kind on our shores. But also the thing is, as you know, Dan, with this Starmer government, it's the chilling effect of what he is saying, of what his police force are saying. And, I've always had an inveterate disgust towards those who presume to tell me what I can and can't say or can and can't do. So another message of mine to Mr. Starmer would be, stick your snout out of your citizens' affairs, please. And I'll continue to write what I like. Thanks muchly.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. But the thing is, Steve, what we are so obviously seeing is an attempt to only persecute, and I mean persecute, not prosecute, but only persecute people for a particular type of crime. The type of crime committed by the Somalian so-called asylum seeker is not widely reported by the mainstream media because it doesn't fit the narrative that they want to shove down our throats, which is that multiculturalism is working and that mass immigration is actually a really good thing, and that people like me and parties like yours are actually just trying to stoke something that isn't really there.
Well, quite. And, immigration can be a good thing. Migrants can be of huge wealth and benefit and contribution to the society. What people have a problem with is the current situation of mass uncontrolled migration, where it is utterly out of control. And just on the point of sentences and jailing, etc., I know Keir Jong-un likes to blame the Tories for pretty much everything.
Yes. That's not going to be able to last for much longer. Look, there he is.
Brilliant. There's so many new names for him. I'm sure they'll continue. But there are huge problems across our jails. The state of them. Many of them are Victorian crumbling jails. Yeah. There are staff shortages. There's gang control. I think that's a huge issue that's not often discussed. But also in terms of how many people we jail. So I looked into some statistics. Per 100,000 of the population, the average across Europe is that Europe jails 72 people per 100,000 of the population. England and Wales jail double that. We're jailing 142 people per 100,000. So we are throwing into jail double the proportion for the average across Europe. So already we're throwing people into jail, yet we look around and see these problems on our streets.
Of course, and the thing is, we're not getting honesty from Starmer on his plans, are we, James? Because in reality, what we know is that Labour wants to jail far, far fewer people. They want to head towards restorative justice. They want lower prison sentences. They want to have a discussion about rehabilitation, right? So I would accept that if they were prepared to be consistent. But from the moment that they thought they could crack down on the white working classes in this country, all of a sudden, they have become completely authoritarian. And they seem to want to throw people in jail for long sentences. Okay, then, well, are you building more prisons? No, you're releasing child rapists and you're releasing murderers early. That is a fact.
Yes, certainly they're very much enjoying the idea of law and order for once Labour are. And as you say, to release or to not imprison a person charged of child rape. So some one of those very unfortunate carer, a woman of 53, will spend 23 months or something for posting something on Facebook.
15 months, yeah.
15 months. Still, I mean, come on.
I know.
Really?
When her husband is not looked after. But the thing is that this isn't all just down to Labour. I want to show you the footage I played yesterday of the Nando's incident. So this was in Stratford, East London. And it was just really shocking to see the waitress attacked by a man who's there with a partner, it seems like, who's wearing a hijab. Now, this woman, this waitress, complained to the Metropolitan Police, who were on the scene. They did absolutely nothing to investigate this very obvious assault. And it was only once there was a social media outrage that they did decide to look into it. So it's not just Labour that is responsible for two-tier policing, is it, Steve? This is something that is so ingrained within our police forces.
Absolutely, or police services, as they like to call themselves now. Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, we've seen it for years under Sadiq Khan in London, the Metropolitan Police Service, who are still under special measures, which is very rarely mentioned these days. And I saw there was another report into them, I think a couple of weeks ago, where practically on every measure, the Metropolitan Police Service was found to be underperforming, from investigating crime to solving crime on I think it was something like 9 out of 10 measures. They were severely underperforming. They're the biggest police service, biggest police force in the country. They're policing the streets of our capital city, yet they're incompetent and no heads seem to be rolling. No, there seems to be very little consequence of that. What's their timeline for getting out of special measures? We're hearing nothing on these things.
No, indeed. Now, of course, all of this anger and unrest was sparked by the Southport Massacre, as I call it. And today I was so grateful for the family of the little 7-year-old, Elsie Dot Stanum, who let us all in to witness what was an incredible, what they described as a celebration of her life. And if we look at those pictures, I mean, they were just absolutely beautiful and heartbreaking. The family had asked for no one to wear black and to all be in colour, and you see her little coffin. It was just really a touching service. And her parents, Jenny and David Stanum, wrote the most pitch-perfect tribute to their little girl. I have to say, I lost it when I was listening. I'll play you just a fraction of what they had to say.
Your beautiful, perfect little girl made you her mummy and daddy, and that can never, ever be taken away. Elsie was a gift given to you and to her sister, and she made your lives immeasurably joyful. Her story does not end here today. Her story will be told every single day by those who love her. Her name, such a specially, carefully chosen name, will be said every single day. She will make you smile every single day, just as she did when she was by your side. Elsie absolutely will continue to make a difference to this world because of her pure and kind heart. She always did what made her happy, and she would want you to continue her happiness in your hearts. The light she brought to your lives will never ever diminish. Her sparkle will always shine. And the love we have for Elsie in our hearts will grow every single day. Thank you, Elsie, for being exactly who you were made to be. Thank you.
I mean, it really is unconscionable. But what's interesting, Steve, is that a lot of people watched that funeral and felt anger. And I really understand that anger, that visceral anger. I feel it. And the problem is, we hear everyone in the media, we hear everyone in authority saying, don't look back in anger. It was a very similar thing that we heard after the Manchester Arena bombing, which killed so many young British girls. But look, obviously we have to be able to celebrate this young girl's life, and that was done perfectly today. But there is a reason to feel anger, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I think none of us, even those of us that are parents like myself, can fully understand what those parents are currently going through.
No.
To not only have lost a child at such an early age, but to have lost that child in such a horrific, horrendous, violent attack that many other young girls witnessed, who survived that attack. And I think nothing can be viewed alone as an isolated event. I think it is natural that anger is one of the emotions that follows up such a heinous, awful situation like this, which is why the government has to come up with a lot more than just platitudes and a lot more than what feels like cover-ups at times.
Yeah. And totally. And they don't even want to have the conversation. I mean, Starmer went to Southport, didn't speak to a soul in terms of the public, in terms of people who were there grieving. He was heckled. And I think it was actually his anger from that reaction, James, which has just led the way that he has dealt with this crisis, which seems to be just shut down discussion and paint folk who are rightly angry as far-right thugs.
Well, that's because he fears the public now. He realises that he no longer has control over them, and he's attempting to. But he can't arrest his way out of this. I mean, that speech that you just showed, who could not watch that without wet eyes? And personally, I do think that the toad who committed this, his family should be investigated too. Who knows what was going on there? And, why is it still that, as Steve said, why is it still that we've heard nothing of the motive yet?
Yeah, although, and I'm absolutely loathed to shut down a conversation, as you know, but I will repeat, it is actually illegal to have that conversation in the UK. We would be locked up if we went on to have that conversation. So I should just clarify, he is at this point only an alleged murderer. He has been charged with the crime. He has not been found guilty of the crime. Of course, our system puts certain things in place for him to receive a fair trial, and we also don't know about the circumstances involving his family. But I want to talk about the political implications of what is going on, because of course there is so much discontent with the Labour Party. And as a result, Reform UK, Steve's party, is surging. And now, within just weeks of having 5 MPs enter the Houses of Parliament, are now quite seriously preparing to become government and to install Nigel Farage as Prime Minister in 2029. A lot of people will say this is fantasy stuff. Personally, I disagree. Watch this. Steve, obviously this is all part of democratising the party, turning it into a proper force that can potentially take on both the Conservatives and Labour. You stood for Reform UK at the last election. You're a member of the party. Are you signing up for this? Do you believe that Farage could be PM by 2029?
Absolutely. I was in the room of that meeting that you just showed the clip from, and I have to say, I don't think I've ever been in a meeting that had such passion and such energy and such ambition. As we're coming for Labour, in the general election, we were second place to Labour in 92 different constituencies. And that's in the situation where, as Nigel said there, a lot of people didn't vote for us because they simply thought we didn't have a chance of winning. What was great during our campaign was our digital campaign, was our social media campaign. I think it's widely thought by everyone from all parties that we won that aspect of the campaign. What we admit to not doing so well was the grassroots campaign on the ground. And that's what a party like the Lib Dems do very, very well at. You know, we all know they got less total vote than Reform, yet they got, I think it's 15 times the number of seats in Parliament, because they've honed down to a fine tea how to get that grassroots movement, how to target seats, and then how to win seats. That's that's what we plan to do for the next election, you know, which may not be until 2029. We're going to be ready for that one. Obviously, you know, one of the main reasons that Rishi Sunak called the election so very, very fast last time, that he knew Reform weren't ready. It was a mad dash for Reform to get the candidates ready and to get into that campaign. We won't be in that situation like next time. We'll have, if not 5 years, 3 or 4 years. I'm not convinced that Starmer will last the full
till 2029. No, I'm not convinced either. I mean, look at his plunging popularity. So soon after being elected. There is no Tony Blair honeymoon going on, let me tell you. And the other thing that you have in your favour, though, and I don't think we can deny this, and no one should want to deny it. I mean, I know Nigel very well. He is the most charismatic politician in the country. And you look at a video like that and you think, you want to watch that. You want to hear from him. As you say, Steve, people in the room were inspired. I certainly don't feel that when I look at any of the Labour front bench. I certainly don't feel that when I look at the Conservative Party contenders for the leadership. But there is one politician who has that same sort of charisma, and it's Nigel's good friend, Donald Trump. And I was really taken by this hilarious moment on Fox News where Trump called in to Greg Gutfeld while he was filming his show live. Let's have a watch of this, and James, I'll get you to react off the back.
I don't know. I think we got to pay you a lot more money.
Hey, Mr. President, I'm live now. Say hello to my audience. So don't say anything that'll get you in trouble. All right.
I don't mind. You know, at this point, what difference does it make? We're doing well. We're leading in the polls.
All right, Mr. President.
8 points down.
Yeah.
And they said he has to get out, and they basically staged a coup.
Yeah.
And you know, let's all see how it happens. But I think we're doing very well.
All right.
We're going to do very well.
All right, Mr. P. I gotta go.
Have a good time.
I see ya. Bye-bye.
James, what a politician.
Do you know, my favourite line of Trump's is one that wasn't very widely published, actually, about Biden in the COVID years. He said something like, well, why spend all that money on plastic surgery if he's going to hide it behind a mask? Now, I think Trump's definitely going to win. I mean, come on, he can't lose to cackling Carol, what's her name?
Kamala,
right?
I hope you've pronounced it right too, because if not, the woke mob come after you. There she is. There she is, cackling. But look, it's not just Donald Trump and Nigel Farage going viral. Steve Chilcott, you went viral the other day because of a confrontation with someone who I know very well. She's been a friend for many years, even though we're totally not politically aligned, Narinder Kaur. You were, I think, trying to defend Reform UK because the anti-racism demonstrators were coming for what they believed to be Reform UK's headquarters. Is that right, Steve?
So, well, actually, I was in central London for another purpose that day, because I was there to support a demonstration against the awful atrocities that are going on in Bangladesh, predominantly against the Hindu community, but other communities too. But actually, on my way into London, a friend messaged me saying, well, do you know there's an anti-reform protest going on today? So, you know, being one that quite likes to go and watch a protest, I sided along. But yeah, as you said, there was a few hundred so-called anti-fascist protesters outside the Reform office, but actually that office is just a post box in Victoria Street. There's no staff there, so it's nothing more than a post box. But that's where they located their little protest, and it was the normal rag bag of far left protesters headed up by all the Stand Up to Racism placards. And of course, there was the gorgeous Narinder at the head of the march as it went off. And as they sort of paused in Parliament Square, I pounced, so to speak, to have a bit of a debate with
Okay,
Narinder.
well, you've set it up perfectly. Let's watch what went on and you can react after.
Because an immigrant who doesn't
Indian
like
and
immigration,
Asian, who are worried about uncontrolled
Steve's actually worse than
immigration.
me, doesn't let me talk. You know Asians who
And
don't
that's
like...
saying something, isn't it?
Immigrants,
Hello there.
immigrants who don't like immigration.
No, they don't like uncontrolled immigration. They don't like people
So therefore
following the
that's-
right
so
process that
therefore-
their fathers and
My dad
grandfathers
followed
followed.
this right process.
Exactly.
And he was put a package off the head, Steve.
That doesn't
We're not-
represent Britain.
Steve, you know
Britain
what
is the
I'm
most
trying to
welcoming
say?
country in the world.
Steve,
Survey after
then
survey
why are
has
you
shown
welcoming
that.
refugees now? They're refugees. Welcome them
They're
now
not.
then.
They're economic migrants, the
You
vast
don't know that.
majority.
You
We
actually
do.
don't know
Why are they all
that,
young
Steve.
men? Why are they all young
Because my
men?
dad
Where are the
came-
women and the
my
children?
dad came with my uncles, 10
When
of
the
them.
Ukrainians
They're
came
not-
here,
you're
it was the
listening.
women and the
You're not
children.
listening
When
to
the
me.
Ukrainians
You're
came
not
here, it
listening
was
to
women
me.
and children
You're not listening
fleeing
to me.
warfare.
My dad came with 10 other uncles.
Legally, legally.
Because they wanted to do the shitty job. My
Legally.
mum, either way, you're not listening to the problem. My mum and then
You're
my
not listening.
aunties came 2-3 years after.
Legally.
Because the men could
Legally.
Even if they were illegalists, they would have been
So
called
it doesn't-
packies.
so it doesn't-
He was called packy all his life. You're
All
not
his life.
welcoming.
Has he called it today?
He died.
sorry
He died.
about that.
Right.
But
so
was he
that's
called
my
it up
point.
to the end of his life?
Yeah, we're still getting called packy.
Where?
We're around
Where?
Newcastle,
Where?
everywhere. I get called it all day long. You're in denial. Oh, they came legally. There are no legal routes accepted. There's no legal. And these
How
are
did the
asylum
Ukrainians
seekers.
come here? How did the Hong Kongians come here?
Because they've been given a
Because
legal
they're
route.
yes, so there are
They've been
legal
given
routes.
it for
You just said
them.
there aren't legal
You got-
routes.
but-
Make up your mind.
But for Ukrainians in the Hong Kong, but not for other people. If you're going to
Why does an
laws,
Albanian need a legal route?
I can't actually-
Why does a
No,
Bangladeshi,
they've
why does a
sorted that out.
Pakistani need a legal route?
Because they've
Why?
helped us in
They're
the war
economic.
there. You
There
don't
aren't
know
wars in
that.
Albania.
No,
There aren't wars in
they've sorted out
Bangladesh.
the Albanian one. We've done a returns agreement there, Steve.
Yeah, but I don't suppose you like that, did you?
No, I
You
didn't.
don't like
That's
sending
good.
people
What
back.
I'm
Oh,
saying
so
to
if they're
people
Albanians,
is-
they should go
no,
home.
what I'm
But if
saying
they're other
is,
people, they
if
shouldn't.
you have legal returns put in place.
So why is it okay for
then you
Albanians,
can
but
return-
not for
I didn't say that.
any
you
others?
can return them, but we need returns agreements
How
in
about
place.
stopping them in the first place?
Why? If they're asylum seekers, they're
They're
entitled-
economic migrants.
You
They're
don't
young
know,
men.
Steve. There's no
They're
good
young
argument.
men.
Steve 1, Narinder 0. But what is so disturbing, Steve, and I don't even know if you know this, but the police saw that video, went to visit Narinder. I think she's made a complaint about a young man who at some point came up and interrupted and maybe made abuse. But apparently the police were also interested to know if she wanted to take any action against you. Now, she didn't do that, but what on earth are the police doing? You're allowed to have discussions in public. What a chronic race of time when people are being stabbed willy-nilly in Sadiq Khan's lawless London.
Yeah, I was aware of that because interestingly, Narinder and I have been DMing each other on X a bit after that little intervention. Yes, she had shared that. I understand, as you say, it was predominantly around, I think, two other individuals that intervened sort of after that discussion with myself.
Yeah, but I don't think they committed a crime either, by the way, Stephen. I've said that to Narinder. They haven't committed a crime. And she says they made her feel threatened. But I'm like, what crime did they commit, Narinder? You can't waste police time like this.
Well, exactly. Although I understand, I think someone else made the complaint to the police, not her, and then they visited her, according to what Narinder said. But as you said, really, but I mean, I'd like to think that no charges have been pressed, and no charges have been pressed by the police, because I have a feeling Narinder would have probably told us by now if they had been.
Yes. James, who do you think won that confrontation, Steve or Narinder?
I don't know why anyone gives this grotty little creature attention. And that's exactly what she seeks. I mean, under her, what can only be called down, I'm afraid, as an assault of like an intelligible shrieking. It was she that told Steve that he was the one that wasn't listening. Well, he couldn't get a word in.
Yeah, it's not easy to have a debate with Narinder. Sorry, Steve.
I was going to say, yes, I found that the most amusing point when she repeatedly told me and shouted at me that I wasn't listening to her. But you see, I've had 20 years training at Speaker's Corner, so there's not much that
that you're not used to. Well, sorry, James, you might have to block your ear because I'm about to give that creature, your words, not mine, Narinder, a little bit more attention. She's got a message for you, Steve.
Hey Steve, it's your favourite person. Hi Dan. We never did get to finish off that debate, Steve. There were so many points. Look, I'm in the family shop. Guess what? My parents came over as immigrants. Now you said, well, they were invited over. That's okay. They were invited over for the jobs that the Brits wouldn't do. So the government made legal and safe routes. Had they not been legal and safe routes, maybe my father would have come over on a boat. Who knows? Maybe he would have. And then my mum and the rest of us would have come over. Because actually, even the legal way, my dad and uncles all came over. And then we came, my mum came 5 years after. And they're not military-aged men. They're not coming here to fight a war. They're coming here to better their lives. It's not fair to say economic migrants. Okay, there might be. So what? We need the workers.
Your response, Steve.
Oh, I don't know where to start. I really don't, Dan. So she just doesn't not like the definition or the existence of economic migrants, and she seems to think that yes, we can open our borders. You know, I work in HR. I've worked in HR for a long time. I know sometimes we need skills that we don't currently have, and we need to bring them in from other countries. We identify what those skills are, and then we bring them over. You know, as we've done for decades and decades. The thought of that somehow justifies people getting in rubber dinghies from France to come over the English Channel and land here illegally, who are not coming from war zones, who are coming from countries like Albania, Pakistan, Vietnam, Turkey. They are simply economic migrants. And unless you disagree with the existence of the state and national borders, then, you know, how could you possibly justify the current scenario?
Okay, Steve Chilcott. James Bembridge, stand by my superstar panel because it has been 24 hours of cancel culture. Jermaine Gus by the BBC, Lily Allen by Animal Lovers, and Katie Hopkins cancelled by the Church of England in the latest outrageous attempt to suppress free speech. More on that in just 1 minute. But first, you know I only talk to you about products on this show that are life-changing. This one's personal, but the guys will get it. And let me tell you, this is the perfect gift if you are a wife or a girlfriend looking to treat your husband or boyfriend. Let me tell you, men want grooming to be a one and done deal, but the days of using the same trimmer for your face and your private parts, how gross, are over. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped. They've come up with the ultimate package to keep you trimmed from 12 to 6. Introducing the Beard and Balls bundle, featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedger. No, not this sort of lawnmower. But this product provides precision trimming for all areas, even the sensitive ones, and will get him as manicured as freshly cut grass. I'm talking about a trimmer for the money maker, another for the boys downstairs. And this trimmer gets it right the first time, being gentle on the skin in all your delicate places. With 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads, you can choose between a precise trim or a smooth finish, and it's waterproof, so you can trim in the shower and avoid making a mess everywhere. Now let me tell you about the Beard Hedger. Whether you're going for a neat stubble like me today or a full-on lumberjack look, it has you covered because it features a titanium-coated stainless steel T-blade and 20 length options. You can achieve any style you want with just a twist of the zoom wheel. Just like the lawnmower, the Beard Hedger is also waterproof, so you can handle your beard grooming right in the sink or shower without worrying about water damage. And with up to 60 minutes of runtime and an LED charge indicator, you'll never be caught mid-trim with a dead battery. This is genuinely such a gentle product, so no more cuts. You'll keep your loved one very happy, and using this product will really increase your confidence. The great news is today you can get 20% off and free shipping by using the code Outspoken when you check out at www.manscaped.com. I'll put the link right now in our show notes on YouTube and Rumble, but it's 20% off and free shipping using the code Outspoken at www.manscaped.com. No more juggling multiple tools or dealing with subpar results. Just efficient, effective grooming wherever you need it for the premium grooming experience. Trust Manscaped. And now back to the show. Let me reintroduce my superstar panel. James Bembridge, Deputy Editor of the Country Squire magazine, and Steve Chilcott, the Reform UK candidate. And cancel culture, which I just hate and deplore, is running rampant across the UK. Jermaine Gus by the BBC, Lily Allen by Animal Lovers, but most shockingly, another egregious attack on the free speech of Katie Hopkins, who has been cancelled by the Church of England for her show. And she has shared a lot of information about this, which I think is really good. It's great to have that sort of transparency. And so I just want to tell you, this is what she's had to say on Instagram. So let me just read this for you. She said, I asked and received specific written confirmation from the Church's Conservation Trust to proceed with this event. We fully sold out 500 tickets in 10 days, which is incredible. Congratulations, Katie. Simon Wells has denied all my best efforts to get the church to be good to the contract and its words. CCT responses: 1, the church has deep pockets. 2, the law is not on my side. 3, powerful funders are involved. Simon Wells and the CCT have hosted Extinction Rebellion and will host Drag, It's a Sin, Glitter and Gore at the church in October. So that seems to make a mockery of this claim that they don't want to host political events. But this man did reply to Katie, and I can show you the email. He says, in the past few days, I have given this matter considerable thought and have discussed it with colleagues and associates. We have also received communication from the Church of England and the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, both organisations who are our funders and have overview of the practices of the Church's Conservation Trust. I appreciate that the cancellation of the event will cause issues for yourself and your team for the ticket holders, but despite our original intention, things change for a variety of reasons. So, Steve, this is chilling. It's not just about the cancellation of a Katie Hopkins show. It's about the fact that you have the Church of England and the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, a government agency, attempting to shut her down.
No, absolutely. I mean, I suppose initially self-declaration. I'm personally no great fan of Katie Hopkins, but to be honest, that's neither here nor there or relevant on this discussion. You know, the fact that she has made a contract with this event facility, hall facility, they've agreed to that. They've signed on the dotted line. They've accepted it. And then suddenly they bottled it and turned around. And I think it's indicative of a problem that we've got across many different sort of areas of life. And that's the politicization, the drive of politics and ideology where they should not exist. You know, whether that's in the workplace. I work for an organisation called the Fair Job UK, which part of our main missive is to get politics and ideology out of the workplace. Well, similarly, you know, it shouldn't be in venue hire. You know, as long as the person that's hiring the venue isn't breaking the law in any way, shape or form, you know, they've clearly got this facility that they hire out to third parties. You know, the person's politics should not come into it. And again, as you say, the fact that the Church of England stepped in, the fact that a civil service department stepped in, you know, it's not their business. They should keep their nose out of these things. And if they've got a facility that they hire it out.
Exactly, it's really chilly. This event, James, was meant to take place on Saturday the 19th of October at St. Nicholas's Chapel in King's Lynn. Now, it seems like they're now trying to say, oh no, we don't want to host any political events. But that seems particularly ridiculous, as Katie points out, given that they are due to host a drag event and previously they have hosted Extinction Rebellion.
Yes, they have. And also, what's this drag event called again? Something about glitter and gore, and that's what homosexuality isn't a sin or something. Well, I would hope it not. If homosexuality was a sin, then I would never indulge in it. You know, it is complete, always the case with them, isn't it? Hypocrisy, complete hypocrisy. And as for Lily Allen and her dog, well, I think that she said that the dog tore up her children's passport. She lives in New York. She wanted to visit her ex-husband in the UK. And she was claiming poverty, saying that, you know, it's so expensive to get new passports, blah, blah, blah. Well, she's worth about 4 million, is she not?
Well, yeah, so let me tell you about this one, because This is reporting from The Sun that we just saw, and it says Lily Allen has come under fire from furious fans after admitting she gave back her adopted dog because it ate her kids' passports. The singer, 39, claimed the pooch ruined her life and meant her girls Ethel and Marnie were unable to visit their dad Sam Cooper in England for some time. So this is what Lily had to say on her podcast, Miss Me. We actually did adopt a dog already, but then it ate my passport, and so I took her back to the home. She ate all 3 of our passports and they had our visas in, and I just couldn't look at her. I was like, you're ruined my life. Passports weren't the only thing she ate. She was a very badly behaved dog, and I really tried very hard with her, but it just didn't work out. And the passports were the last straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. Now, look, I don't want to see Lily Allen cancelled, Steve, but you can imagine this has gone down incredibly badly with dog lovers who say, come on, this was your fault. It wasn't the dog's fault.
Well, quite. I mean, the headline could have been "Dog ate my passport," which reminds me of the old headline "Freddie Starr ate my hamster." That's what jumped into my mind. But yeah, what a load of nonsense. You know, if you like Lily Allen's music, you like her music. What's her dog care got to do with her music capability? It's just astounding.
Yeah. Now, the other big cancellation is, of course, from the BBC and Jermaine Gus, who has been sacked from Match of the Day and from hosting the One Show as a result of apparently inappropriate conduct, maybe messaging, some people who worked on the show, females who worked on the show. According to The Sun, his wife is standing by him, and he was absolutely furious in this interview with TalkSport.
You know, I'm going to be speaking to my lawyers about it, is all I can say right now. I'm not happy at all about the outcome of this, but I've got to leave it in the hands of the lawyers right now.
Were you surprised that any complaint was made against you?
Yeah, there's 2 sides to this whole thing, and, you know, my lawyers are going to be taking over from now on.
So what do you make of this one, James? Because I actually feel like the BBC is making Jermaine Gus a fall guy here. It's like, oh, we're going to cover up for the paedophiles Jimmy Savile and Hugh Edwards, but Jermaine Gus sends a few inappropriate text messages to a woman and he's sacked.
I seriously don't think that sending flirtatious messages, even if they are ill thought, should be a sacking offence at all. No, as you say, it's basically the BBC trying to do good PR to show that they are now actually being tough on sex offenders for whom they employ. No, I mean, come on, flirtatious texts. Who of us do not send those?
Yes, but I guess the point was if he was sending them to people who he worked with. There was this very awkward moment on the Michael McIntyre show which seemed to suggest what might have been coming. Watch.
Everyone you know is going to receive that photo. When you look at that, who are you most worried about it going to?
Ellie's mum.
Should we send that to everybody in JK's phone? Enya QJ, One Show. Who is that?
She's one of the producers on the One Show.
Well, she's just said, I'm sending this to HR.
Oh, good Lord, Steve.
I know, HRA. I mean, that just seems almost too coincidental, doesn't it? That a BBC-produced show and, you know, that happens and HR is mentioned. But also, I just want to say, you know, Hugh Edwards, they kept him suspended on full pay for over a year. And that actually only came to an end when Hugh Edwards resigned himself. Yet this seems to be an instant dismissal, which apparently Jermaine found out whilst live on air for TalkSport, where he was doing another job. Not very good HR practice.
No, but the thing that I hate about this, James, is it's the way that the cancellation by the BBC feeds through to the rest of the media in a witch hunt. Let's be honest, that's what this is. Before anyone knows anything, before there's been any form of due process. And remember, I've been victim of one of these media witch hunts. I know how awful it is and how it's very often based on complete lies. But what I think is so grim in these situations is you see the weak corporates, especially in the media, just wash their hands instantly. So TalkSport are now saying, oh, no, he's not going to present again. TNT, where he was commentating on Saturday, oh, no, he's not going to commentate again. It's like, what, do you want to ruin this guy? Do you want to destroy him for something that maybe was an HR incident at the BBC?
Or just look at your brilliant interview with Kevin Spacey. It's happened to countless people in Hollywood. And, I get ahead of the scandals by writing about them myself.
Well, that is very, very sensible. Thank you so much to my superstar panel, James Bembridge and Steve Chilcott. Have a brilliant weekend. Now, it's very important to me that we have a safe space not patrolled by big tech where censorship and control runs deep. So that's why we have www.outspoken.live. It's our membership section where you will get a half hour of extra content every day. So at this stage, we come off YouTube and Rumble. We move to our own platform to continue our conversation in the uncancelled after show. All you have to do is sign up at www.outspoken.live today. And I have to just warn you, we might be running a few minutes late because joining us from the US is the amazing Samantha Markle, sister of the Duchess of Sussex, now estranged, who is going to weigh in on what has been a disastrous week for Prince Harry and his wife, with Netflix set to cut their 5-year, $100 million deal, and that Colombian tour just been really embarrassing. We have lots more footage of that to come. So do stand by. We may be a few minutes, but we will be coming, hopefully, very soon with Samantha Markle. Do subscribe too if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. We are back every weekday at 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you. Have an amazing weekend.